Welcome to another episode of the Voices of the Learning Network podcast. I'm your host today, Bill Banham, and in this episode, I'm going to be joined by someone who has spent more than 2 decades exploring what truly drives human performance and meaningful learning. Kurt Lindley is a learning design consultant whose work spans elite sport, education, healthcare, and global organizations. He blends coaching science, psychology, and narrative to help people make sense of complexity and make learning stick. Hey, Kurt, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, thank you, and very privileged to take this opportunity to have a chat with you.
So in this episode, we're going to explore the messy reality of learning, Kurt, the future of human capability in an AI-shaped world, and some of the hard questions we often avoid when building experiences meant to help people grow. Let's start by a question that you're keen to tackle as part of today's conversation. It's around, if we switched off 80% of corporate training tomorrow, this is a great question. How much real performance do you think would actually suffer, and what would that reveal about how learning is currently designed?
So you can guess I'm deliberately trying to provoke, I suppose, a response through some of the questions that we're going to be tackling. And that one is just to say, like, how important are we? So yes, I believe we're important learning and development. And I think we have a role, and there are lots of things that we can do to make life easier. But we've got to be careful not to believe that we are the answer to lots of problems and challenges, because if they did switch off that learning, I guess a lot of things would still continue as they should. Now, what would probably happen is we'd fall off a cliff. So at some point, things would go wrong, and they'd realize we needed to bring learning and development back into the fold. But if they did, then hopefully they would invest the proper time, energy, and money, and then with it, the design features to make sure it's the really good stuff that makes the greater impact. So yeah, in all honesty, I think there is a great deal of learning out there that is passive, let's say. So I don't want to talk about tick box stuff. I'm talking about stuff where we're sharing information in a way that we think is great, but it's not being ingested by the person receiving it, and they're not feeding on it well enough, and then it's not doing anything for them. So it's a challenge that we have to keep kind of battling with.
You and I were talking before we hit record today. You recently presented at the Connect conference. You did a 5-minute talk. Tell us a bit about why the community matters to you, and then go into the talk that you presented and some of the hoped for learning outcomes.
Well, I suppose the learning network itself is a great place to test and challenge your ideas in a way that you can do it with peers who are willing to kind of almost poke at the bear, pull apart some stuff, and hopefully doing it from a critical friend point of view to develop yourself. So I would say it's a great platform, whether you're doing something virtual with the network or whether you're doing something physical. And when I was tossed the opportunity to maybe do 5 minutes at the face-to-face event recently, and I thought to myself, how do I make this work? And what a great challenge. I've taken hundreds of journal articles, turned it into 3 or 4 day training programs that have become 1 hour workshops, then maybe a half an hour workshops, to now being 5 minutes. And it really does push you to go, what's the most important stuff to share? And to sort of quote a friend of mine, Laura, what is it they don't need to know? It's a really, really good challenge to help you pull out the redundant information to land the message. And the message might simply be something that provokes people to go and do more. You're not about necessarily changing behavior in the moment. It might be something that they do later as a consequence of the thing that you've dropped with them.
Okay, thank you very much. You've described learning as a wicked problem. I don't quite know. I'm sure you're going to explain in just a minute. Are you being like street when you say wicked problem? Are you emphasizing how bad the problem is? We'll find out in just a second. In practical terms, what makes organizational learning so complex, and how should L&D teams rethink their approach?
So the framing of a wicked problem came out of a jovial statement, but it has real resonance. So it came out of the statement that every learning experience is flawed. And what I mean by that is we're not able to create the perfect experience, and we should stop expecting ourselves, or that expectation being put on our shoulders. And I use that frame now to help almost forgive myself for creating something that doesn't meet everybody's needs. The idea is to meet as many people's needs as well as possible within the time or investment pot that I have. And then when you look deeper into learning, the reason it's a wicked problem is it's ill-defined in terms of each of us have a slightly different interpretation of what it is. Every learner that engages in the experience we create has a different starting point, so they see it differently. They all come with different biographies, so they all have a history that we're unaware of totally. So we can't interpret what their response might be to the experience. So with all of that happening, there's no A plus B equals C in this situation. There is only kind of like our best opportunity given what we know, and then respond and work with that. Now, to push it back a little bit, if we can understand it's a wicked problem, it doesn't have to be a failing. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh, that's terrible, because all learning experiences are flawed, but it doesn't mean they're bad. What we can do is put more responsibility with the learner, getting them to understand what it is to be a responsible learner, somebody that leans into the experience. So it becomes like we move towards each other. But I have to work on motivating you to want to move towards me. I can't just expect it. And you have to lean in and go, okay, sometimes this is going to be effortful. It's going to take some energy from me. I might not come away ticking the smiley sheet saying how great it was. I might come away going, that was a really hard gym session, but it was worthwhile and valuable.
Yeah, you mentioned gym session at the end there. A lot of the language you used as part of that answer kind of harkens to the fact that you're also a UK sport endorsed mentor at UK Sport. How much has being a mentor with UK Sport and getting a chance to work with elite coaches shaped your outlook and your philosophy towards learning?
I think it's a stark reality of you don't think you know the answer. I think when you're working in that world of high performance and mentoring, my first real kind of set of lessons were when I was working with British Shooting. And there was something about me turning up as Kurt thinking, oh, I've got this position and I'm now capable and able to help somebody develop. What actually helped is taking more humility in that space and going, I might have the questions to provoke somebody else to think. I might have something around a curiosity myself that will help move people from A to B, but the shift and the move is theirs. And for me to think I could even like give them an answer is dangerous. Now, I might be able to offer some thoughts and guidance, and I have to put something around that in terms of this is my perspective. It may not work, rather than try this out because it has to be owned by the person. But they also have the thing to acknowledging high performance sport is you are working with fine margins. You don't always have a great deal of time with people. They're under a great deal of pressure when it comes to competition time, and every interaction really does matter. You waste an opportunity with an elite performer or their coaching team, and you might be the reason why you don't win a medal, which has a massive knock-on effect to an organization in terms of funding, which means that you might find people get made redundant because without medals, there's no funding. Without funding, organizations shrink. And that's the same in business, is to think about, okay, if we want to be high performing, what is it that we need to think in terms of how we operate and make the most of every interaction? And what's the culture we want to set around that? Not one around stress and anxiety, but maybe managing what that comes with being in that stressful and anxiety-inducing place, and how do we look after each other as we go through that?
Do you think that high-pressure environment brings the best out of people?
I think that's very individual. That's a great question, because you could say yes, for some people, they perform best. So I know I perform best where I suddenly have a deadline that needs to be met. And I'll push myself to deliver a good outcome, but I'll carry some level of anxiety and stress with it, and I'll have to recover afterwards, and I have to plan in that recovery. I can't keep going again like that. But for some other people, that's quite overwhelming, and that can actually stop them in their tracks and actually make life very difficult for them in the lead up to it, and it could break them. So I think it's understanding what each individual person needs to get there. I recently did a piece of work with a local authority as they were looking at changing the way they structure the whole of their authority borders and things like that. And we talked around how do we manage that period of uncertainty from where we are now to where we want to get to. And there's a concept known as safe uncertainty that's really helpful to consider, where we have to acknowledge that the world we operate in is uncertain. We cannot ensure certainty for everything, but what we can do is consider what are the things that make us feel safe during that period. So what are the pillars that we can lean on? The idea is to take something like a chair and consider that as your safe base. It's safe because it's stable. It has 4 chair legs, but it's also uncertain in terms of, well, we can move the chair around the table. It has different places where it can exist. But in that, for each chair leg represents something that's really important in terms of managing yourself during uncertain periods. So the people around you is one, the place you operate and its familiarity, the purpose that you have in relation to all the change and the dynamic situation that's in front of you. And then finally, it'd be lovely if it was another P, but it's not, it's O for object. What are the things, what are the entities that make you feel safe? For some people, it could be like as you were a child, you might have had what people refer to as a blankie that made the child feel safe. You have a dog, I have a dog. What makes them feel safe is the smell of their parents on clothing that they might have had in and around them, that sort of thing. So what is it that keeps you feeling safe during those periods? And that's quite important to consider when we're trying to perform at higher levels.
Okay, so a quick follow-up to that then. So storytelling is clearly, clearly plays a big role in your practice. Why is narrative? And I'm going to challenge you in 60 seconds or less for this one, because it's a bit of a follow-up. So in 60 seconds or less, why is narrative such a powerful tool for sense making and behavior change, especially in the complex environments we've just been talking about?
I'll try and do it less. Stories bring emotion. Memories bind to emotion. Without emotion, memories disappear. So if we can evoke a storytelling episode or experience, it helps people recall the past, which is part of memory. And if we're doing something that allows people to generate a story from that they can tell others, it generates more of that kind of like anchoring, and there usually is emotion associated with it. Now, it could be good or bad emotion, but stories inherently are linked to an emotional piece, which then increases the ability to retain that piece of learning.
We've spoken about, for example, you worked in the world of elite sports. You've also worked in education. From the different sectors you have helped in, what signals tell you that a learning intervention is genuinely shifting behavior, not just generating good feedback scores or engagement metrics?
I think it's probably when you get to engage with people 3, 4, 5, 6, beyond that, months after you've had an experience with a particular organization, and they're not only talking about the experience they had with you, but what impact it's had and the things that it's doing. So it could be increased in productivity, it could be increased in relationship value between people, it could be in a sense of safety within a team and an ability to share more openly during challenging situations. But it has to be something for me that's happening months later rather than anything else. Otherwise, yeah, a lot of what I do might end up only lasting 24 hours, three weeks, 2 or 3 months, and then we got busy. There's a thing we refer to as burnout and re-entry, where people kind of go on a workshop and they take all that great learning and they head into the environment they were in before with this new learning. And because they are the only person that experienced that learning in their existing working environment, and they're trying to share this stuff, they hit this inertia, and it's like they just burn out and go back to their old practices. So we have to be conscious of how we're setting them up to succeed when they arrive in their work environment.
And for those who want to learn more, for those who want to connect with you, how do they do that, Kurt? Is that through LinkedIn? Do you want to share your email address? I bet you're super cool and you're on the Instagram and TikToks and places like that, aren't you?
So no, actually, LinkedIn is the only place I really share these days. I think there's so much noise out there that if I got involved in too many platforms, I would dilute the way that I'm trying to operate. So LinkedIn is the best place. Just search for Kurt Lindley. You'll find me. From there, you'll see a variety of ramblings, whether it be about life and people development or the science of learning or some other random thing that feels pertinent at that point in time. But it'd be great to connect with anybody who wants to.
Excellent. Well, that just leaves me to say for today, Kurt, thanks very much for joining me on the pod.
No, thank you, Bill. It's been a great opportunity to share. Thank you for asking the questions and challenging back on 1 or 2 things.